everybody, and welcome to my Leopard Gecko Vivarium presentation. So let's get started. So let's start from the bottom. So first I went to my local Petco and I just got a normal 10-gallon aquarium. Then I also got some of those little, I call them aquarium driftwood pieces. And this is when I was kind of planning out how I wanted to place those pieces in the vivarium to make sure that the gecko that was going to go in there had enough climbing structures and things like that to work with. And then I used the Great Stuff foam and I put that on the backside of the enclosure, and then I stuck those wood pieces in there to make sure they were all safe and secure for the animals. And then I also used some of this clear caulk to put on the background to make sure the sand and eco earth stuck, like you're going to see in the next slide. So now we're here. This is the final product. So like I said, I used that clear caulk and I kind of put it on the foam, and then I combined it half eco earth, half of the reptile sand I purchased into a bin and kind of mixed it around. And then I would put the clear caulk on the background and then sprinkle the sand and the eco earth on top of it to make it look more like a naturalistic sandy rocky background, because these guys are from the desert regions in the Middle East, so I wanted to make it look as natural as I possibly could. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about what I did inside here. So you can see I got some of these succulent plants, and those I just got from my local Lowe's store. They actually came in a variety pack. It came with like 10 or 15 of them for like 20 bucks. And obviously I couldn't put 10 or 15 succulent plants in one little 10-gallon vivarium. So I picked out some of the ones I really like to kind of match the scenery and place those in the vivarium. And then, like I said, I used those Zoo Med aquarium wood pieces kind of as climbing structures or basking structures, and they can also burrow underneath them as a hide as well, which is very cool. And then for my substrate, I used half eco earth on one side, and then I used the Zoo Med reptile sand on the other. And the reason why I wanted to use two separate substrates is so that the animal could choose what substrate they wanted to be on, if they wanted to be on the eco earth side or be on the reptile sand side. So just provide them that opportunity of choice and control to figure out, what substrate they prefer the most. One of the things that I found interesting was when I was reading, journal articles and also stuff from the private sector, UV lighting was a really big topic that a lot of people didn't really know about. So one of the things was like, do they really need UV light? Because they are a nocturnal species, so they're most active at night. So do they really need UV lighting? And I am a person that says 100% yes, they would benefit from having the UV light, like all the many journal articles that we have read this semester about benefits of UV lighting to prevent NBD and other medical concerns. So here are my little circles to represent my different lighting structures. One of them is obviously going to be a UV light, and then the other is going to be a heat lamp to provide that basking temperature. And then I strategically placed that little log right there to act as a basking structure. So you can see my little gecko right there. And then they can adjust themselves on how intense they want the heat and the UV. So giving them that choice of control to choose, how much heat they want to receive or how much UV they want to receive as well. So the heat gradient for this enclosure needs to be between 75 and 85 degrees. So just keeping that ambient temperature in the room, that temperature, or if you need to add additional heat structures to maintain that temperature. That's what I would recommend. And that basking spot needs to be between 85 and 95 degrees. And all of these degrees are obviously in Fahrenheit. And then for that UV lamp, it really doesn't need to be that intense of a UV lamp. They're considered a Ferguson Zone 1 because they are nocturnal species. So that UV needs to be between 0.0 and 0.7. If you want to have a UV lamp, that's great. Or if you're able to put the enclosure near a window and get some natural sunlight, I think that would benefit the animal as well. All right, so next I want to talk about kind of the lighting cycle for this enclosure. So like I said, these guys are a nocturnal species. So the light dark cycle needs to be 12 on, 12 off. And then during the evening, you can turn that basking lamp off, and you can let the temperatures drop between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And then, like I said, hide structures are super important for these species, and I didn't have any on me at the moment, so that's why I'm using kind of these little green cylinders to show my hide structures I would put in this enclosure. So I would put one hide on the left side of the enclosure on the eco-earth side, because it is recommended that they have a damp hide. So I put it on the eco-earth side so you can really mist down that eco-earth to allow that to be their damp hide, because they need that for shedding. So getting in that damp hide, loosening up all those scales, and then shedding them off. So that's why I put that hide on the left side. And then also there can be a hide on the other side. And this would be kind of their hotter, drier hide. So they'll be able to, go under this log and kind of burrow themselves in there. And that can be another hide structure for them as well. And another thing is you can see them from the side, which is super cool. For diet with these guys, they're mainly insectivores. So they mainly eat crickets, mealworms, superworms, and dubia roaches. And it's really important to dust them with a calcium powder, just because to make sure they're getting enough vitamin D3 in that supplement if you are not choosing to use UV lighting. But if you are, it's still great to implement that calcium supplement on those insects for them. Another thing I wanted to talk about was gecko enrichment, because not a lot of people know about gecko enrichment. Even at my last institution that I was at, we didn't really have any enrichment to give to our leopard geckos, but I found a few videos and a study about implementing enrichment for these guys. So that first image on the left is actually a feeder. So there's a little feeder, and then they put mealworms in the feeder, and then the gecko had to kind of actively watch and hunt the mealworms out of the feeder, which was super cool. And then that next photo is just a little hide, so just even changing up their cage furniture, and even with this naturalistic vivarium, it's going to be very enriching for them. But even providing them with different structures in the vivarium will be super enriching. And then the 3 pictures in a row is actually a study that was conducted with leopard geckos, and they implemented all different kinds of enrichment: olfactory, sensory, physical, and they found that the ones that were most enriching for them were the physical ones. So you can see there's a Kong ball and a little feeder item. And then the one on the very bottom is scent. So they would put different scents on little pieces of paper, and then they would come up and sniff them. And it didn't really increase their activity, but they did come up and smell it. So it was enriching in some aspects. So all these things I think should be implemented into your vivarium in some way, shape, or form. I know they aren't super naturalistic, but I believe it's super important for their welfare to be implemented. And then this is just an extra vivarium I wanted to share with you guys. This one I made at my last institution. I was at the Memphis Zoo, and they asked me to build them a presentation tank. So what this tank is used for is we will put our ambassador leopard geckos in the tank because they weren't really the best at being handled outside. So we thought it would be more comfortable for them to be placed in a tank like this. And so I made a naturalistic background and put different plants and hide structures in there so that we can take this enclosure out on our little critter cart and show guests what the geckos look like in their natural environment. And with both of these enclosures, the one I made and this presentation tank, that's what I would recommend for the leopard geckos you're going to be putting in there. So either using it as a presentation tank or using it for juvenile geckos. Obviously, a 10-gallon tank is kind of small for an adult gecko, so I would recommend this for a younger gecko around a year to 2 years, as they're growing, and then once they get to be adult size, switching them to a 20-gallon tank and just using this tank, kind of like I said, as a presentation tank. Well, thank you guys for listening to my Leopard Gecko Vivarium TED Talk, and of course I had to put a picture of a leopard gecko butt on here. So thank you for coming and have a great day.